waves hit parts of Russia and Japan following a powerful 8.8 magnitude earthquake that struck off the coast of Russia early on Wednesday.
Belgium refers petition against 2 Israeli soldiers over Gaza war crimes to the International Criminal Court, ICC.
One of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded struck off the coast of Russia, injuring several people according to local authorities. The 8.8 magnitude earthquake had its epicenter around 119 kilometers from the Russian city of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, on the Kamchatka Peninsula. Tsunami waves reached as high as 10 to 15 meters in some sections of the coast there, according to Russia's Oceanology Institute. Local scientists say they expect aftershocks with a magnitude of up to 7.5 and that more tsunamis are possible near the regional capital. The head of the area's health department said several people were hurt as they left buildings. A local kindergarten was also reportedly damaged. All those who were injured are reported as being in a stable condition. Authorities in the Kurils Islands of Russia's Far East introduced a state of emergency following the tsunami. While no substantial damage has been reported so far, authorities are warning people to stay away from the shorelines.
The European Union has failed to agree on cutting Israel from research funds in response to the war in Gaza. The EU Commission's proposal needed a qualified majority of member states, but Germany and Italy, 2 of the largest countries, said they needed more time to examine it. Although not an EU member, Israel has full access to the Horizon programme, the biggest worldwide, as an associated country. The Commission has proposed a partial suspension.
This would focus specifically on the European Innovation Council Accelerator under Horizon Europe. What is this exactly? This is the part of the funding program where we fund startups, including Israeli startups, that participate in projects that have a dual use potential. So disruptive technologies can be drone, can be quantum, can be artificial intelligence. And this is the part that is affected by the Commission's proposed suspension.
Under the current budget, Israeli entities have received around €900 million from Horizon Europe. If it is cut from the programme, Israel could lose €200 million of funding. But the EU would also lose.
Of course, we always lose. We want to collaborate with third countries, and this is precisely why Horizon Europe is also open to researchers, universities, students from third countries. So, of course, our objective is to collaborate. Now, this decision was taken as a reaction to the review of Article 2 of the EU-Israel Association Agreement, and projects where grant agreements have already been signed will continue.
The European Commission accuses Israel of breaching its human rights obligations, while the UN warns of catastrophic hunger in Gaza.
A complaint against 2 Israeli soldiers who were accused by an NGO of violating international humanitarian law in Gaza has been referred by Belgian authorities to the International Criminal Court, ICC. The soldiers had been identified at the annual Tomorrowland Music Festival in Belgium by the Hind Rajab Foundation, a Belgium-based pro-Palestinian group. According to the Belgian Federal Public Prosecutor's Office, 2 complaints were filed earlier this month against the 2 Israeli soldiers. On Wednesday, the prosecutor's office said it had decided to refer the complaints against the 2 members of the Israeli military to the ICC. The decision to question the 2 Israelis was based on an article in Belgium's Code of Criminal Procedure that went into force last year. Israeli authorities did not immediately comment on the action by the Belgian prosecutors, but Israel has always maintained its forces follow international law, tries to avoid harming civilians, and that it investigates any allegations of wrongdoing.
The US and China have agreed to work on extending a deadline for new tariffs on each other after 2 days of trade talks in Stockholm, according to Beijing's lead negotiator. But US officials said the extension still needs approval from US President Donald Trump, saying their Chinese counterparts had jumped the gun a little.
We expressed our concern were their purchases of sanctioned Iranian oil, of which they buy about 90%. We also expressed our regret that we believe that they had sold Russia about 15 billion of dual-use technologies. But the overall tone of the meetings was very constructive.
China said both sides agreed to work towards extending the current tariff pause by another 90 days beyond the August the 12th deadline. The talks come as Trump is reportedly considering plans to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping, a summit that could be a crucial step towards locking in any major agreement between their two countries.
US President Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that he plans to impose a 25% tariff on goods from India and an additional import tax because of India's import of Russian crude oil. In a post on social media, Trump accused India of being Russia's largest buyer of energy at a time when, quote, everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. The U.S. leader criticized what he described as India's strenuous and obnoxious trade barriers. The sanctions on India come amid Trump's threats to impose tariffs of up to 100% on Russia's trading partners if President Vladimir Putin doesn't cease hostilities in Ukraine. India relies on Russia for around 35% of its crude oil imports, reaching a two-year import peak in June of this year, according to local media. It also imports an estimated $80 billion in Russian military equipment. Trump on Monday presented a new shorter deadline of 10 to 12 days for Russia to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine.
What impact will the trade agreement between the European Union and Washington have on European households and businesses? Most European products exported to the United States will be taxed at 15% from 1st of August, but residents of Brussels say they aren't so worried about their purchasing power.
I think tariffs are counterproductive. I think I prefer free trade. And I think it's self-damaging to the Americans to bring in tariffs on anybody and everybody.
I think the EU depends a lot on the US in many ways, and we should probably become more independent and develop our own economic strategies more independently from the US.
In the short term, the impact of US tariffs on European consumers should be limited.
On European consumers is going to be limited. And why is that? Tariffs or duties are paid by the importer. In this case, this 15% tariff that the US is imposing on EU products apply to the American importers. So that means that certain things might become more expensive for the American citizens.
In the long term, Chinese products currently exported to the US could find their way to the European market, which could lead to lower prices in Europe.
Primary effect will be less demand for European products in the US, and less demand for Chinese products in the US, and that means that these products will then try to look for a market in Europe, which generally will lead to lower prices.
European companies exporting to the US are likely to face a drop in demand on the other side of the Atlantic, which could lead to a decline in their revenues and potentially jobs in Europe. US President Donald Trump hopes that foreign companies will be encouraged to open factories in the United States to avoid paying tariffs. However, concerns around Trump's predictability and the uncertainty surrounding the duration of these tariff barriers could conversely discourage European companies from investing in the United States.
On Tuesday evening here in St. Peter's Square, Archbishop Fisichella led the inauguration mass for the Jubilee of Youth. He welcomed the hundreds of thousands of young pilgrims who flocked to the capital on the occasion. Some of them arrived here from conflict zones and thanked them for making the effort. This is the largest event of the Vatican's ongoing Jubilee year. For the first time in its history, the Catholic Church has celebrated a two-day event entirely dedicated to digital missionaries and Catholic influencers as a way to show how much the digital environment has become a true mission field. As the Vatican's Secretary of State, Parolin, put it, quote, the digital world needs hope. And addressing digital missionaries at the end of the Mass celebrated by Cardinal Tagle on Tuesday, Pope Leo urged them to mend nets of relationship, of love. And in a world torn by conflicts, the Pope highlighted the importance of spreading a message of peace. The Jubilee of Youth includes a series of meetings, events, activities culminating on Sunday when Pope Leo will lead a Mass in Tor Vergata on the outskirts of Rome. Giorgia Orlandi for Euronews in the Vatican.
At least 9 people have been killed in an explosion at a fireworks factory in central Thailand, local officials said on Wednesday. The blast occurred in Suphan Buri province, about 95 kilometers north of Bangkok, in the heart of Thailand's central rice-growing region. According to the Sameco Suphan Buri Rescue Foundation, 9 people were confirmed dead, while 2 others were taken to the hospital in critical condition. The number of people missing was not immediately clear. Shattered wooden buildings in green rice fields littered the scene of the explosion. Authorities said the building was used to produce fireworks, but the cause of the explosion was yet to be determined. A similar incident in the same area in January 2024 killed around 20 people.